I'm Chris, ex-member of the Hells Angels, and I am chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Chris. So at
And
this
that's
time, are you a member of that other club?
I was a member of that other club the whole time, yeah.
And
Yeah.
were you wearing your hats and everything, or no?
No. That wasn't that kind of club. They don't wear their patches all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not a 1% club at all. They're just a big like
Just riding, right?
ride. And yeah, that we did go on a lot of rides, like local rides, and guys would break off and Uh, even before I was in that club, I went to Sturgis with those guys a few times. I
Did you
will say,
tell the people in that club what you wanted to do?
when I decided to do it, I walked into that club and quit. Me and another member from that club, we went down to Rockford, and because we were in another club, it made our prospecting go a little faster, and so we rode back and forth from Madison, Wisconsin to Rockford, Illinois. Every church and all wherever we had to go.
And what was your prospecting period like?
I prospected for like I want to say 14 months maybe. I started hanging around. Well, I became a hang. I was a hang around for like 2 weeks maybe. Could go. We didn't have to do because I was in another club. I didn't have to be a friend of the club. I could go right to hang around for 2 weeks, and then I became prospect. And me and two other members, we all started prospecting together, and that would have been in 2002. So I prospected from 2002 till September 12th, 2003, and that's when I became a member.
So after what's it like when you become a member and you finally get that patch?
It was a relief, but there was some turmoil around me getting my patch because I prospected in Wisconsin. And when I came down there to become a member, I told them, hey, I need to work on Fridays, so I can't come to the open bar. And then some people that prospected with me uh, got a little butthurt after they made member and they didn't want me to come in. And at that time, I used to like to I used to like to snort, man. I can't say that I didn't. And when I came up for a vote, the one member's like, old dude's like, we're not voting for you because you like to snort. And then the dude, ironically, the guy that told on me is like, I'm not voting for this guy unless you vote for them, right? And my thing was, you didn't tell me I couldn't snort, right? And I didn't make any secrets about it, that I snorted cocaine. I like to snort cocaine and ride my motorcycle. I don't do it anymore, but
Back
something
then.
about it back
Yeah.
then, right? Right. I mean, I can't, nothing better than snorting a line off of coke at the back of a toilet at a bar and then going to the next bar and doing it all over again, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
it sounds silly. It really does sound silly and childish, but I'm a big kid still to this day, man. You know, do would I snort cocaine every day like that or do that stuff today? Hell no, man.
So
Not a chance.
how do they call you in to get your patch? Do they walk me through that day?
The day we got our patches, I just went into the clubhouse. We were standing out for the gate, and they called us in. They said, "Hey, you guys are Hell's Angels." It really wasn't that big of a hoo ha, and I don't even know what we did that night afterwards. To be honest with you, I mean, it's been a while. I'm sure we went out and partied, and it just felt like I had made it. I'd accomplished something. and it felt like I had the keys to the world. But at the same token, the whole time I prospected, the one message that was loud and clear is it's easier to become a Hell's Angel than it is to stay a Hell's Angel. And I didn't know what that actually meant. You know what I mean? I did not know what that meant until I became a member. And because now you're immersed in the drama of the club drama, right? And and I met a lot of good people in that club, and I don't have anything bad to say about in that club. But I will tell you, it's like in some ways, it's like a bunch of high school girls with their drama, except for their alpha males sometimes cranked up on speed, and we know what that does to people. It makes people's thinking delusional, and and so then that makes it dangerous, right? And when you become a member, you like they would say to us, we had to wear beepers at that time or pagers or I think Nextels. I didn't have that. I just always had a regular cell phone. But if a 911 code comes to the club, text on a text, you get your ass to the clubhouse, right? And that's what you do, And my whole deal with becoming a member and be and want in the club is I looked at it like this. I'm on the Hell's Angels hockey team, and every other motorcycle club is a different hockey team that we played against. And I'm when we're playing in that thing, the camaraderie, the tribal, the team thing, our team is first, and I don't give a fuck who it is, where it is, when it is. Still to this day, you know, my loyalty, if I was in a bike club, bleeds to the Hells Angels. I can't say that it doesn't, right? That's because it is. And I've run into outlaws since. I've run into outlaws. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but in Madison, Wisconsin, where I live, because the CC riders and the relationship with the public and the law enforcement and firemen and whatever the fuck else goes on in here, they were able to keep the outlaw motorcycle clubs out of this world, right? And there's been times where the outlaws made a chapter here because me and another person prospected here.
Were there any problems? You wore your prospect patch the whole time going into Wisconsin?
I wore my prospect patch, my hell, yeah. The first time I went to Laughlin, right? I didn't really know. I wasn't quite up on the privy on the bike club war, and that was in '98. They had this thing in Sauk Prairie called the MDA run, and that is the second biggest run, except for the Love Run in California, right? And there's no one percenters there. There's nobody like that, but there's bike clubs, mom and pop clubs, stuff like that, right? And I had a ticket from a T-shirt from SFV that said "faster than a speeding ticket" on the back. Big red machine. Great slogan, right? I mean, the support shirts are cool too. And I walked in there wearing that, and it was like when I would walk by, people would turn around and the world would stop spinning, right? And I didn't even know why. And this guy that I knew, he's like, "You're wearing that shirt here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm wearing that shirt." He goes, "Well, this is Outlaws Day." And I said, I was young. I'm like, I don't give, you know what I mean? So I wore the shirt, and that kind of set me on my thing to wanting to be that. And you know, I'm the person that says, if you tell me I can't do it or I have to be the first one to do it, there's a good chance I'm going to show you that I'm going to do it. And I did it because nobody else had done it before. Yeah, I wore my t-shirts, I wore shirts, I went to the Harley shop, I worked at a restaurant, I used to own a bunch of gambling machines, and I go to bars. I did it all, did it all.
So when do you run into the opposition? And what was that experience like when you finally go head to head with a rival motorcycle club member?
So when I first started prospecting, the Outlaws at that time started a Black Piston chapter here with some of the armed guys. And I remember the first encounter I had some gambling machines at this strip club, and I had a meeting with one of the armed guys, and I said, "Hey, man, this is my town." And he's like, "I just want you to know, and they're maybe they were Black Pistons at that time. I just gonna, I'm told to take care of you. You can't be here." I said, "I've known you for a long time. We can do whatever you want to do." And so we walked out of the office of that strip club, parted ways. And then I don't know, some months later, after I'm prospecting, we pull into this bar down the road from my house. It was me, another prospect, the guy I prospected with, and the Hells Angels member who wore a wire on me, and his old lady. And we pull into this bar, and they're waiting in cars ready to handle their business with us, right? And they had us dead to rights. And the other dude that I was with, the prospect, he gets jumped on his bike by some outlaw, or I don't know if they were outlaws or not. They might have been Black Pistons. Who knows what they were? You know what I mean? I'm not in their club. I don't know. But they start fighting him, and I said to the dude who was the president, his name was Hillbilly. I said, "Me and you, let's talk." And I said, "Dude, we can do this every day. We can just pick how we want to die. You want to get stabbed? You want to get shot? How do you want to die? Or you can come into the bar that's right down from my house because I'm getting something to eat, and I'll buy you guys a beer and you can be on your way and we can call it a day. How's that?" And they go in there, I buy them some beers. I never seen that dude out there again. But the guy that was like his second in charge, fast forward after I'm a member, they come into a bar and there's like 30 of them, 40 of them, and we get into this huge bar brawl. I'm fighting with them in the bar. It's the dude that I prospected with. Oh no, it wasn't him. It was a friend of mine who's a tattoo artist, the guy who's telling on me, and a girl that he brought. And I had just been stabbed, and I think I probably had an IV pump and a broken leg at the same time. Because of that, my charter in Rockford drove up here the next day and threw me out of the club for fighting with the Outlaws. That didn't sit well with me. And so I ended up getting back into the club, into a different charter. And they took me in. And then, you know,
And that
uh,
usually doesn't happen.
no, that didn't happen, right? That usually doesn't happen. But I had a videotape of the fight, you know? And my thing was, I'm confused, right? Like they're the opposition and I'm fighting with them, you know? And the other thing that they told me when I was a member, when I became a Hells Angel or prospecting, is Hells Angels make their own rules. Nobody can tell a Hells Angel what to do that's not a Hells Angel. Actually, Hells Angels aren't even supposed to tell each other what to do. I think maybe those rules have changed. I don't fucking know. Um, but it was confusing, right? Like you're throwing me out for fighting with our enemies, and mind you, 5 years prior or 8 years prior to that, you have uh, a stabbing, a member of the henchman getting killed in his motorcycle shop while the feds watch. You got people's trucks getting blown up all over the place. In 97, those, like, I think 7 outlaws got convicted for all that stuff. You know what I mean?
A bunch of
And
Hells Angels got arrested with in a Rico case, right?
yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff. You know what I mean? My personal thing is a lot of this shit is set up by law enforcement. And still to this day, the arrogance and the craziness of, hey, come on, Ellie. Uh, the craziness and the arrogance and the law enforcement is friends, I guess, with people in these motorcycle clubs and stuff. And somehow somehow it's been acceptable, and they're on the other team too, right? Like if you're not on my team, then we ain't teammates, so we don't need to be friends, you know? And I'm not saying law enforcement doesn't have their place in this world, and they do, but they don't need people dry snitching or snitching or doing whatever they do, skirting their responsibility from going to jail to throw other people under the bus.
Tell me
And
about the
those
guy
are,
that told on you. Was he in the club?
yeah, he was in the club. The
He
first
was
time
he was a
he was
full
a,
patch member.
he was a full patch member, and he became a member in Reno. And how he ended up coming back here to Madison or to the Midwest is he had a child support warrant because he had a kid and he never took responsibility for it. Again, he made it. You have a kid, you make it, you take care of it. You don't have to make him. The craziest part is he was my ally. It was, so when I was in Rockford, it was me and him and another member here, and then the people in Rockford, the members in Rockford, right? And we all rode down together. He was like our ambassador, or you know what I mean? Like it was almost like two separate charters in some ways. It felt like,
But
you know.
he's wearing a wire on both, right?
He didn't start off wearing a wire, and you know what? I'm not gonna say that we didn't have a good times, man, because I had good times with him, and he loved to snort cocaine too, right? And,
Did
but
did he always have money, and did you feel like he would always get
fuck
away with
no.
shit?
Fuck no, he didn't have two nickels to rub together. He was broke, fucking broke. Maybe he was broke, maybe he wasn't, right? But no, he didn't have money. He didn't have money. I mean, I was the only one that had money per se, and I didn't have a lot of money. You know what I mean? But my whole life, when I'm flush, the people around me, we're all having a good time. You know, we only get one rodeo on this planet, and we might as well live it to the best of our abilities every day, no matter where we're at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Fuck. You know, and maybe I was a dreamer, right? Because I thought Rockford, Illinois was San Francisco and Oakland or LA, California, right? But Rockford is a far cry from there. And the Outlaws put a chapter in Rockford, I believe, too. I don't know if they're still there or whatever it is, but me and the other member becoming members here really stirred the pot. And so the dude that told on me, there was a point where I really I thought that something was haywire. You know what I mean? Because my mom didn't like him, and I got stabbed at the old clubhouse. Right? That's a whole nother story. We can talk about that on another one. But that was a setup, man. The cop sat out there. The cop that was on this bullshit that had me on that, he wrote a book called "You Gotta Be Dirty." He got fired from Madison. It was crazy. You would have
Wait,
thought
so
that.
you got stabbed while you were in the club, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wh- uh, How did that transpire? We could talk about it now.
How'd that transpire? That transpired because the former club I was at was having their winter party, and they invited like my son's mom, and they invited the other dude I was prospecting with's girl. And I didn't usually drink, but for whatever reason I went down to my family's restaurant. I drank a couple beers, picked up some and I went down to that party, and I was a bully. I said, "Hey, I'm coming in," right? And they shut the door, and they're like, "We got to talk to so and so." Next thing you know, dude reaches out, punches me. We're brawling. I'm fighting, and I don't, I'm getting rat packed. It's survival of the fittest. I bit a chunk out of the dude who, one of the people that I was fighting with, who claimed to stab me. Now I know he wasn't the one that stabbed me, because it would have been impossible from where I got stabbed, right? If he was fighting me head on. I bit a chunk out of his hand, and then I backed off and I said I couldn't go anymore. And I told the other dude that I was with, I said, "I can't drive." He goes, I said, give me the keys. I got to go to the hospital. He goes, you can't drive. You just got stabbed. I said, what the fuck are you talking about? I reach my hand out to the side and the blood is just shooting out. And I get around to the back of the car and I collapse.